Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Tides of Torment DLC and whether or not Creative Assembly should delay it, given everything that has happened in the community, the issues that Warhammer 3 does have ever since 6.3, and the community outrage over things that have happened for years. I think at this stage, Creative Assembly is trying to figure out what to do. I can imagine that over the last couple of days, they've had many meetings, many discussion within the company on what to do next. For now, based on their public statements, it seems that they've decided to release the hotfix and then do the marketing. So they've delayed the marketing for Tides of Torment, but they may not have delayed the release date. Though it's worth keeping in mind, Tides of Torment was already delayed, and we never got a fixed release date. So here's what CA stated in their blog. They stated, news on Tides of Torment will take a back seat until we've resolved this issue, the AI issue with Tomb Kings, Lizardmen, and they're also looking at Beastmen. We're looking forward to giving you first complete look at this next DLC, but fixing the issue comes first. And of course, their apology. That's a good start, though it didn't necessarily go down so well with a lot of people in the community. What do I mean by that? Well, if we look on Steam, we can see that just as they made this announcement, Steam negative reviews did spike quite a bit. So we're now in a mixed situation for the game as a whole, where overwhelmingly negative, forget mostly negative, it's just going to take 1-2 more days or something along those lines, but it's going to be overwhelmingly negative soon enough with regards to Steam reviews for the game. So we're in that situation with Warhammer 3, and I think that regardless of what Creative Assembly decides to do, they should be careful on the subject. And the reason they should be careful is because if they just do a hotfix and then start their marketing immediately after, I don't necessarily think that is going to go so well. A lot of the community is outraged. Now, as a content creator, I'm going to give you my perspective. My perspective is I obviously want Tides of Torment to be released as soon as possible. I would have wanted Tides of Torment to be released earlier, in fact. That is the perspective as a content creator, because it has been a long time. It has been a slow year. We knew in advance that it was going to be a slow year, but I don't think anyone, be it the community, Creative Assembly, or content creators, expected things to unfold in this way. But this is the situation we're in, and I think the situation needs to be fixed, at least to a degree, for the DLC to be released, because otherwise it's just not going to sell. Now, I did this poll on my channel on whether or not CA should delay Tides of Torment. 30% of people said yes, 30% of people said no, and 55% of people said maybe. And it depends on what they do in the hotfix, what they do in 7.0. So it's really going to come down to how they handle that situation. Now, you can argue, oh, it's just 330 votes. Generally speaking, from my experience with polls, even polls that get thousands and thousands of votes on them, you can usually tell what direction the result is going to be in. The percentages will vary, yes, but you can kind of figure out what the conclusion is going to be on the subject. So it really is a big maybe right now from the community standpoint. And that maybe is going to depend on what they do. Someone commented this, and I think it was the perfect comment, that if it is a good hotfix that really improves the situation, then they should release it. If it's just kind of okay or just, you know, good enough, then they should release the DLC. Because, again, if they release the DLC in the current outrage without calming the waters, it's just not going to do very well. And that's not a situation anyone wants to have. Creative Assembly doesn't want to have it, content creators don't want to have it, and certainly the community doesn't want to have a DLC released in a situation where the game has many fundamental problems. So I think they need to resolve some of those issues. But of course, that's the problem. They can't fix all of Warhammer 3 right now. Like, I've made a list of broken AI factions. Which ones of those would I consider a priority? Yes, I would consider Lizardmen, Tomb Kings, Beastmen, maybe a couple others. But really, what's more important from my view at the moment is that CA regains trust of the community, because that's what's been destroyed, really. In the sense that they need to release a good hotfix, but then I think they should follow that up with a kind of developer interview, not just a blog, like a really roundtable discussion about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and not the way they've done things before, where you get developers talking about it and it's very vague, it's very empty, there's not a lot of details. We need concrete examples of what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. Timeline could be a bit sketchy, sure, but I think that would do a lot to help start, and I emphasize the start part of it, start regaining trust from the community in Creative Assembly. But this brings up another point. The entire process, the entire relationship between Creative Assembly, content creators, the community, but really CA and the community, has been broken for many years now. We've been here before. And if they don't change that relationship, it's just going to keep happening until there's no longer a total war, there's no longer a Creative Assembly. What do I mean by that? Well, here's the reality. For many years now in Total War, this has been the situation. Something is broken in a Total War game, doesn't matter which one it is. CA does nothing for months or years, even in some cases. The community anger grows and grows and grows, and then finally it explodes. Then Creative Assembly is in panic mode, trying to put down the fires, trying to resolve the situation. They do some things, and that are just good enough to resolve some of the community outrage, but the fundamental issue is that this shouldn't have happened in the first place. Now, I'm the kind of person who says the past is a lesson. It's not is not something to use as a cudgel against others. So bad decisions have been made by Creative Assembly over the years. Absolutely. But CA really needs to move past that in a very good way. We need to move past the mentality that Creative Assembly had when, say, Rob Bartholomew released his blog post on Shadows of Change and the price point. Because that letter, it's not about Rob Bartholomew, it just indicated CA's attitude towards this. Like, if you don't like it, we won't produce it. Problem for CA with that, when that letter was released, the outrage was significant. CA banked hyenas, that didn't work out, and then they almost got shut down as a company. So this entire situation with 6.3, with the AI, with all that, this is not the final stage. This is the prelude. And if they do not improve the dynamic between themselves and the community, it will just get much worse. We'll have another scandal, maybe, and eventually someone's going to pull the plug on CA. It's kind of a situation similar to what I've seen in many governments, and activists, community, if you will. Things need to happen internally. Like, activists can put pressure on a government or corporation, but things need to happen internally. Unlike a government, however, and unlike in politics, governments have a lot of inherent stability in them, because regardless of how people feel about government, they still want institutions. CA doesn't have that buffer. They don't have that safety net. They don't have an entire society that has an intrinsic interest in keeping them out there. Sega certainly doesn't need to keep CA alive if they choose not to. And it is their choice. It is Sega's choice. And I think that they considered, at least, making that choice in 2023. I don't know what kind of discussions are happening right now in Creative Assembly. I don't know how Sega feels about it. And let me say this much. You don't want to start hearing news that Sega is considering stepping in more so than they've already done after 2023, because they did step in very significantly. We have Jürgen Post. He was brought in. He's Sega's man in CA based on what I can tell. But beyond that, you don't want Sega to reconsider their approach to CA. If we get to that point, if we even start hearing about that point, then we're going to be 1 second away from midnight. I think right now we're kind of like 1 minute, 10 minutes away from midnight. We can see the midnight, but we're not in the twilight zone. You don't want to be in the Twilight Zone. So I think fundamentally, that's my perspective with Tides of Torment. Do a good hotfix, do a good roundtable, start regaining trust in the community, and it's going to be a process. They need to realize this. I'm not saying the community needs to realize it. The community owes CA nothing. And the moment people accept that, the more healthy it can be. The community may be angry at CA, but the worst part about it is not when people are angry at you. The worst part is when they don't care anymore. And right now, it's good in the sense that people do show they care, but if they stop caring, if this goes on further, that will be a disaster. We've seen with other game companies, we've seen with Concord, we've seen even with good games like Wildgate. People didn't care about that game. And it's not a bad game by any metric. It's actually a pretty good game in a lot of ways, but people just didn't care, didn't engage with it. There's various reasons for it, sure. But what I'm saying is that is the worst kind of situation to be in. And I don't think CA wants to end up in that situation. That's all I had to say. Costin signing out.